Everyone knows the spider bite, but what happened next almost ended Spider-Man before he even started. In March 1963, Peter Parker wasn't a hero, he was a desperate teenager looking for a paycheck. In his very first solo issue, Spider-Man doesn't just fight a villain, he tries to join the Fantastic Four, but things go sideways the moment he enters the Baxter Building. From his first encounter with the Chameleon to the start of Jonah Jameson's lifelong smear campaign, Amazing Spider-Man #1 changed the rules of what a superhero comic could be. Today, we're breaking down the issue that proved that being a hero is the easy part, but being Peter Parker is impossible. Hello, yes, thank you for joining us on the channel for another video. Today we're looking at the Amazing Spider-Man #1. In the previous videos, we were talking about his debut in Amazing Fantasy #15, but this is his first full-on issue. Now, we've got two great feature-length Spider-Man thrillers. Now, regular viewer Benjamin Kellogg believes that these may have been anthology entries that have been bundled together in an issue. I think that's a great shout, actually. That makes a lot of sense. One of them certainly seems to include the Fantastic Four, which is a very smart move and something Marvel does a lot, and why wouldn't you? So at this point in 1963, the Fantastic Four are, I assume, the most popular comic book characters for Marvel at this time. And it makes complete sense to bring him into your new hero that you're trying to promote, which is Spider-Man, of course. And it looks like, as normal, there's some sort of antagonism, so the Fantastic Four think I'm trapped, but they don't suspect my real power. That does two things, doesn't it, for us? So one, there's a conflict here. So he's a hero, these are heroes, they're in conflict with each other, but they underestimate Spider-Man. Maybe we underestimate him too. And suddenly we're thinking, well, what is his real power? What is that? And there's a lot of intrigue on that page, which I enjoy. And then down here, I don't know if it's the same story or a different story, but the Chameleon strikes. So extra added attraction, Spider-Man meets the Fantastic Four as the Chameleon strikes. Well, that sounds like it's certainly the same story. So I don't know what the other story is going to be, but certainly this is what we're starting with. And this is, just want to take a quick second to appreciate the page. I think it's a really great image. So you've got the three of them down here. You've got Sue Storm, the Invisible Woman, Mr. Fantastic, the Thing. They're looking up at Spider-Man. He looks like he's trapped in this container. And then you've got Johnny there. So you've got, there's a lot going on. And I'm keen to see what's happening inside the issue. I've not actually read it before. I go in blind. So we're discovering it together. So let's get stuck in. So we've got this great spread here on page 1. Spider-Man, it looks like he's sort of up against the wall and he's got his web. Got people shouting at him. My first immediate thought is, I can see that the art is by Steve Ditko again, who did Amazing Fantasy 15. This sort of vision of Spider-Man is a little bit different to the front cover, I would say. A little bit like it was in Amazing Fantasy 15. So I think I'll have to go back and find out who did the cover for this particular issue, because it is a similar situation where the proportions, the character looks a little bit more awkward and spindly than it does on that heroic front cover with the Fantastic Four. So that's something to check out in a minute. And I think I'll put a note here to say who did the front cover so that we can get some closure on that. And as noted, he featured first of all in Amazing Fantasy 15, but due to popular demand, he's back with his own comic. And there's a quick note down here to say, yeah, you've read many stories about many different heroes, but you've never seen anything quite like Spider-Man. He's got the hyphen here, but not down here. Interesting. So perhaps this page was put together before this bit up here. That's interesting, isn't it? Also interesting to note is you didn't have this so much in that first appearance, but straight away you've got a bit like with the X-Men. You've got this anti-Spider-Man sentiment here. Freak, public, menace. And here, I'm sure that's going to be Jonah Jameson, isn't it, right there? Sure looks like him if it's not. But let's get on with the story and find out. So here we go, the first proper page. So this looks like it follows straight on from Amazing Fantasy 15. So at the end of that issue, a bit like in that first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie, Uncle Ben is killed by a robber. It's the same robber that Peter let go. He didn't tackle him when he had the chance, and he went on to kill Uncle Ben. He chases him down, turns him into the police. The issue ends on that note. But here we are, this first panel is almost minutes after the end of that issue. And he's thrown his Spider-Man outfit against the wall there. He's damning himself. He says, I was too late to save him. And he's already wishing that there was no such thing as Spider-Man. Panel 1. And we're straight into the crux of the issue, aren't we? Peter Parker versus his alter ego. And we're giving a quick recap here. I suppose this is for people, I mean, you're watching this, everyone around the world knows who Spider-Man is today. But back in 1963, most people, I would have thought, picking up this issue wouldn't have heard of him. So it's smart to give a quick recap. So it talks about getting bitten by the spider, getting the powers, trying to cash in, make a buck. Then we've got a recap of this robbery here, shooting Uncle Ben off panel. As soon as he learns what's happened, he webs his way across, catches the robber, turns him in. What is not mentioned here in these 3 panels, I suppose maybe to save time, maybe it'll come up later, is the fact that I don't want to say Spider-Man's fault. He would feel partly responsible for having not tackled that robber to begin with when he had the chance. If he had done so, Uncle Ben would still be alive. They have not gone into that here, which is interesting. Maybe they're saving that for later. But we're straight on with the woes. So Uncle Ben is gone and Aunt May and I are alone. And already we've got this issue with money and making rent and how we're going to make ends meet without Uncle Ben. So a lot's been covered off on this first page, hasn't it? So we've got Peter already resenting having to be Spider-Man. Well, he doesn't have to be Spider-Man, but he's resenting being Spider-Man already. We've recapped on Uncle Ben, and now we've got these money problems, and Aunt May's at the door begging for more time to pay the rent. This page, we've got that classic Spider-Man dilemma where he could just so easily rob a bank, couldn't he, and get money any way he wanted, and that's something he thinks about. He won't be human, would he, if he didn't think about that? And that's what makes Spider-Man such a relatable character, isn't it? So it's not like, I'm a hero. It's more of a, damn, I sort of wish I had it in me to just take the money, but I'm not that sort of person, and it would break Aunt May's heart if she found out I was a criminal. And that's what most people... That's what most people's thought process would be like, isn't it? I suppose I'm not going to lie. I think that would be mine too. But in any case, he decides he's going to perform again. That seems to be the most legitimate way to make money as Spider-Man. And his friends are all going to go watch him at some show, and Peter decides he's not going to go. And they say it'll be fun without him anyway, or it'll be even better without him. And look at this look on his face. He looks a bit sad. And he hasn't got that if only their new look on him today, has he? So he's definitely feeling that sting. This is a great page. I've seen it before, actually. That it comes up from time to time when people are discussing Spider-Man and his money problems. So he performs the show. Great panel up here. Shows you a nice little section of different acts he's performing there. And you got the people being wowed out of the sides. Nice little sort of montage image. And this is what I'm talking about here. So it's time to get paid. And this guy says, well, I can't pay you cash. I suppose that they did at the wrestling thing, but that's a different story. But he wants to give him a check. And there's an issue here, of course, because you can't just go in and cash a check to Spider-Man. He says, make it out to Spider-Man, takes it to the bank, and can't do anything with it. So he can't give away his identity. And the check's worthless, essentially. That's great, isn't it? I mean, what's he supposed to do with that? I mean, it's good that they do that because they have to cut it off at the head, don't they? That if he could legitimately make money this way, he might never become a full-on hero, might he? So he could just make his money and go home, and that'd be the end of the story, really. But they sort of have to, as a character, push him more towards the edge, so that he's not comfortable, and it just makes more sense for the story, doesn't it, as well, in his relatability. I mean, I'm going to say how many people find themselves in this situation? Nobody, as Spider-Man, but I mean, I'm sure we all feel that to some level, don't we, what he's going through there. It hits us all somewhere, doesn't it? But here on this panel, we've got Jonah Jameson, and he's typing up a story, and when he's through with this article, Spider-Man will be run out of town. I mean, I love these panels where they introduce these characters, and straight away it's the characters that I know and love 60 odd years later. And they're not messing about with JJ, are they? They're straight in with what he's about, and that's who he is. I mean, that picture, those words, you could put that in a comic today and it would just be as relevant. But again, no hyphen. So they must have come up with a hyphen maybe after all the panels and wording had been done. So anyway, on to the next night. Spider-Man turns up for another show. I don't know how he thinks he's going to get paid, but this chap tells him there's no more shows, forget it. And this leaves us on a bit of a cliffhanger for this page. So on this page, we see that J. Jonah, who is named finally, has done his work, and Spider-Man's name's been dragged through the mud. He tells Spidey, don't even turn up. They'll have you arrested. They'll be mobbing for you. And he's like, well, why? What have I done? And then cut to this story here. Jonah Jameson's talking about how children may imitate his fantastic feats, and he takes the law into his own hands. And oh boy, I mean, if only he knew he's in for this for another 60 years. This is classic, isn't it? This takes me almost right back to the Fox cartoon. I can almost hear him. In this panel here, I'd be interested to get everyone's takes. The webbing in between the arms and the torso, I absolutely hate it. I'm not a fan of it, and I look forward to it disappearing altogether. But interested to know what you guys think. I suppose it's part of classic Spider-Man, but it's not for me. Yeah, I don't enjoy that part of the look, to be honest. And another character is introduced down here is son, Jonah Jameson, the test pilot. I sort of think of him more as an astronaut, but that might be from the movie. Is he in the cartoon as well? I forget. But in any case, he points to him as a real hero. And this great panel down here, you can see Peter's looking angry. It's a nice bit of art there. And this guy here doesn't even believe Spider-Man's real. It's all fake news. So at this page, we've got Spider-Man pushed to that brink we talked about earlier. So he's reading the paper. He wants to get a job. Here we've got this interesting tidbit about Jonah Jameson's going to orbit the Earth in a rocket. So he is an astronaut then. And as he's reading about that, he spots Aunt May, who's going to pawn her jewellery. Can't believe it's come to this already. And he can't even get a job. They're pushing out this story again, and you can see J. Jonah on the newspaper there, and look at Peter with his hand clenched like that. It's all his fault. He can't make any money as Spider-Man because of this man. Look how angry he is. He says he can't give up, and he's got to earn some money somehow. How's he going to do that? Let's see if we can find out. So here we are with Spider-Man Part 2. Now, is this Story 2 or Part 2 of Story 1? We'll find that soon. And Peter's going to watch the launch, so J. Jonah Jameson's son, John Jameson, is going up in the rocket. And interesting that the hyphen is back. Well, I'll say back, probably the first time they've used it in the panel properly, but Spider-Man now has his hyphen. So that's interesting. So did this get put together down the line from the first one? I don't know. It'd be interesting to know what's gone on there. But in any case, it's 15 minutes to blast off, and there's JJ. You can see Peter in the background. Let's assume that's Peter. Yeah, looks like Peter. And he's wishing his son good luck. And minutes later, the capsule with John Jameson's side is set into orbit with a perfect launch. So, we've got issues. Houston, there's a problem. So the capsule's got issues. It's twirling. Nice bit of art here. Shows you twirling around. That panel tells you everything you need to know without all the words, doesn't it? That doesn't look right. There's an issue with the guidance, and the capsule's out of control. So this component 24.3b has broken loose. Condition red. So red's never good, right? Without this missing part, he's going to crash into the Earth. This made me laugh because the space technisians attempt to drop a steel net to catch the capsule, but with no success. Where's that drop from? Where's that come from? I've never seen anything like that. I know it's a comic book, but is there any sort of basis for that in real life? I don't think I've ever seen anything like that. I'll completely withdraw that if there is merit for it, but I don't think there is. But anyway, they miss. And I love this panel down here. This has been my favourite panel so far, really. So up to this moment, Peter Parker hasn't thought of himself as a hero and hasn't even had any real heroic thoughts, unless I'm mistaken. But as he's watched on, he's grabbed his costume, and there's only one person who can save him. So he's been compelled, despite all his issues he's having and all the problems and the fact he won't blame John Jameson directly, but his father he certainly blames for his woes, but that hasn't stopped him grabbing the suit, and he's going to do the right thing because that's what Spider-Man does, right? There's a lot I really like about this page. So this is a great bit of art here because just by showing that bit of tummy in his hands, you can almost see the action in your mind of him pulling that down. It's great. Just in that still image, you can see the motion, which I always enjoy that. But the hyphen's gone. It's Spider-Man, and the hyphen's back again, which tells me that here, they haven't purposely done it as the Spider hyphen man that we know. It just so happens to have been because of the bubble, because they ran out of room to put Spider-Man. That's all it is. So it's not Spider hyphen man yet. But in any case, he goes to the control center, and he just so happens to hear that they have got a spare unit which will save the day. And he bursts in and says, "I can help." And J. Jonah. Well, in fact, I thought that was J. Jonah at first. I'm sorry, but that's J. Jonah there. But it's a Spider-Man. This is like a colonel or whatever. And Spider-Man says, "Let me have the missing piece. I'll get it to the capsule." And J. Jonah's like, "Absolutely no way." But I love this when they do things like this. It happened in X-Men #1 as well. Yeah, sure, kid. Why not? It's a bit like in that X-Men #1 where they turned up and said, "We'll fight Magneto for you." And the army stand back and go, "Yeah, cool. Go for it." It's just one of those things you go with. It's comic book world, isn't it? So why wouldn't they just give it to Spider-Man and let him have a crack? And it tells J. Jonah to stop flapping his gums and watch what I can do. What I love here is we see Spider-Man webbing someone up for the first time. So this guy's told him to halt. He's got his gun aimed at him and Spider-Man webs him up. So there's no time for that. The first of many webbings. But here, this was crazy. So he commandeers a plane. Does Spider-Man know how to fly a plane? I don't think I could jump in a plane and just start flying it. But that's one of the things you have to let go for the sake of the story, because even as Spider-Man in the early page said, I'll sort it out, you think, how's he going to get high up in the sky? He can't fly. But he can commandeer a plane and fly it around, which I thought would take a little bit of training, but I guess not in Marvel world. But he somehow catches up to it. I mean, that in itself is sort of ridiculous because, well, I don't know what to say about that, really. I mean, the thought of this plane catching up to this catch-all and intercepting it, I mean, if he can do it, why can't... I don't know. This is where the net came from. Did they fly around and drop this net in front of it? It's comic book logic. But in any case, Spider-Man flies it nearby and he's stood up and I guess he's going to jump out onto it. Well, they sort of answered my question because it looks like there is a pilot there, but how did he make him do what he wanted? Unless he hitched a ride, maybe the guy was flying there. Anyway, hard to say. But just by putting that guy's face in there, it gives you just enough that you will let it go. So there's a few questions as to how Spider-Man's ended up in this position with this pilot, but hey-ho. So, twing, I like that nice little sound effect. So he hits it, and I like that they go into the physics of it, so it isn't just like he snatches at it. So it isn't just like he webs it and then crawls his way up. You can feel the physics, the wind resistance, so he mustn't let go. He's fighting against that wind, and he's using all his strength, so it would be really difficult, right? And I'm glad that they go into that detail. It isn't like he just webs his way up to it. And even in this image, you can see it's, the physics of the situation is trying to force him away from the capsule, but he reaches it and he's losing altitude dangerously. Can he attach the missing unit in time? ... Part 3 now, and he manages to fix it, and he puts the part on. It fits as smooth as silk. The capsule's under manual control, and it looks like it's going to be making a safe landing. So on this page, I knew what was coming, but as a first-time reader, you must be thinking, oh, finally, he's taught this JJ around, and he must now see that Spider-Man's not a bad guy. Spider-Man succeeded, the capsule's about to land. Whew, my boy, he's safe, so he's going to be pretty grateful, you'd have thought. But Spider-Man jumps away, gets away, he doesn't want all the attention. So it's a great little panel, this, because it's not like he's congratulating himself or anything like that. He doesn't see himself as a hero at this point, does he? He's just happened to do the right thing, and he'd be embarrassed about people congratulating him. But anyway, he's back to thinking about performing, and he's got a smile on his face. He's done a good thing, and he goes to read the paper, and he can't believe it. I mean, this paper came out pretty quick, didn't it? But in any case, it must be the next day. But he reads the next edition of the newspaper, and he's astounded. He can't believe it. Neither can we. This newspaper demands that Spider-Man be arrested and prosecuted. You can't believe it. I mean, as a reader, you must be thinking, what on earth? And so is Spider-Man. You can't believe it. He thought he'd done a good thing, and this guy's out for blood still. And now we have the last page of the story. So J. Jonah accuses Spider-Man of creating the whole incident so that he can become the hero and save the day. Yeah, I understand where that logic comes from. Whether he actually believes that or not is hard to say at this point. Or is he just trying to sell a paper? Who knows? That will come down the line. And at this point, I won't say he actually believes that is the case. I mean, that sort of stands to my understanding of the character from when I've watched the cartoon and the movies. He genuinely believes Spider-Man's the bad guy. And what he's doing has an effect. So this is propaganda at its finest now. So everybody's believing it. They all want Spider-Man run out of town. You've got this Spider-Man sort of wanted poster to report him to the nearest FBI office. Obviously, I'm not an American. Would this be a matter for the FBI? Maybe it'd be an X-File. And even Aunt May, she calls him that horrible Spider-Man and he wants locking up. And poor Peter, what am I supposed to do now? Everything that he does as Spider-Man turns out wrong. And that is Spider-Man through and through. I'm sorry, kid, this is how it's going to be for a long, long time. And he wonders to himself, must he be forced to become what they accuse me of being? And that leaves us on a really nice cliffhanger. So if after these two issues you're invested in this story and Peter Parker, then you're dying to know what's happening next. So it's a really great balancing act they've got here with Spidey. So it's not just Spider-Man and sometimes he's Peter Parker, and it's just sort of a thing that they do. This is almost more about Peter than the actual hero Spider-Man, isn't it? So it's Peter's woes and what he's going to do, how they're going to make ends meet. And that's a really great balancing act. So at this point, I'm as invested in Peter and his real world problems as Spider-Man and his feats and what's going to happen there next. So that's the end of the first story in this issue. The fact that the first story has all these separate parts in it and then it stops and then another story begins leads me to think that Benjamin Kellogg, a friend to the channel who provides so much context and information to these stories, I think he's probably right in what he says about perhaps that was meant to be part of an anthology series, maybe another amazing fantasy story, who knows. That makes sense. I don't think that there's any sense in splitting a first issue up into 2 stories and then that first story having 3 parts. That makes me think that they maybe had something in the back burner ready to go, and they just said, well, let's put that out with another story next to it and see what happens. That makes a lot of sense to me, but let's move on to the next story with the Fantastic Four. Now we're on to our second story, Spider-Man versus the Chameleon. Great splash page here. So this is page 1 again, so another page 1. And we've got the Chameleon here. Now, the Chameleon doesn't look like what I thought he would. My mind's eye vision of the Chameleon is sort of informed by the cartoon on Fox. That'll always be the Chameleon to me. When I think of the Chameleon, that is who I'm picturing. But here he looks very different. I like how he's looming over the whole city. So we know he's not he hasn't got like a superpower as such. You know, he hasn't got anything on the sort of scale of Spider-Man or anything like that. And he certainly can't grow large, but it's just interesting that he's obviously got his Spider-Man's head. The fact he's covering the whole city, it's not like literally, it's like he could be anywhere in the city. And that's a great sort of metaphor, I think. But here you've got the Fantastic Four. It's extra, bonus, extra. So it's extra. You've got the Fantastic Four here, and I like how Thing's got his mouth open like, oh my God, what's going on? And you've got these people running away as well. There's a lot to be said for this picture here, isn't there? So how can you defeat a man who can change his identity before you can catch him? Well, I suppose we better read the issue and find out. And I'm just quickly popping back to say that the lettering is done by a chap called John Duffy here. There's another guy called Johnny D who did the previous story, and I think that's going to be important in a moment. Because up here we know him as Peter Palmer. Who? These guys have been putting these stories together. I haven't been talking, obviously, because he's Peter Parker, not Peter Palmer. So this chap obviously didn't get the memo on that. I thought something big had changed because the lettering itself looks very different. It almost looks like it's been done on a computer, doesn't it? It's very neat. A lot smaller. So I think there's going to be a lot more information in here. This is almost reminiscent of like I'm sort of reminded of a Chris Claremont sort of X-Men issue where they used to pack in so much text. I think this is going to be a lot more dense to read than the first story. And in the story, they don't mess around. He's going straight to the Fantastic Four. There's no point beating around the bush, just the quickest way for them to meet. So he makes his way across. He thinks he's going to join the team and make some money. And interestingly, he now has the hyphen. So he is Spider-Man and Spider-Man. So we can thank this chap for putting the hyphen in, even if he did call him Peter Palmer. But he can't get up the Baxter Building by himself. You have to be one of the Fantastic Four to do so. So he abandons that and goes to a nearby building, webs across. And this threw me a little bit. So instead of just webbing across as you imagine he would as in later years, he walks across it like a tightrope. And I guess they're going for the sort of spider thing. That is what a spider would do, right? A spider wouldn't just jump and leap across or sort of web away. He would walk across a tightrope sort of situation. And I guess that's what they're going for. But it's a little bit silly. I think they'll make away with that before long. And they've got these people down below taking pictures. It's the Spider-Man. What a bonus we'll get for this shot. And of course, it doesn't go the way Peter intends. The Fantastic Four, the alarm goes off. There's an intruder on the way. And I like this little shot of Mr. Fantastic sort of stretching his neck around to see what's happening. And it's always good when comics do this. They do it all the time, don't they, to be fair? But instead of them just being sat there, they've taken the opportunity for Mr. Fantastic to use his powers just to stretch to see what's happening. So if you're reading this and you don't really know who the Fantastic Four are, you think, oh, that's interesting, he can do something. So they realise it's the Spider-Man, they're watching the screen, and the Thing comments that he's just a teenage cornball show-off. How do they know he's a teenager? I think, well, we know he's a teenager. Is that for us? But they certainly shouldn't know he's a teenager. But Spider makes his way through the window, lands in this container, and I guess that's sort of meant to be reminiscent of the front cover. I mean, that shows a very different story. That shows him actually being trapped and up in the air, but here he just stops the doors from closing, gets out, and he's immediately sort of accosted here, and they're trying to talk it out. So if you're a first-time reader, you can see that the Fantastic Four are heroes. You know they're heroes because they're trying to talk about it instead of fighting and say, what's this all about? Spider-Man's a little bit cocky. You can see, by the way, he's just jumped through the window without checking it out first, and he decides he's just going to fight them just to show off and show them what he can do. And we'll see how the Fantastic Four respond to that. Now we've got the Invisible Girl, Sue Storm. She tries to sneak up on Spidey, and this is the first use of his Spidey sense. So he senses that someone's behind him, and instead of that exposition of just telling us what his powers are, we're seeing them displayed and showcased through the issues. So this is the first time we're made aware they have such a power, and he uses it straight away, which is a smart way to introduce it, right? And he's more than a handful for these guys. So you've got Johnny trying to circle him, and he jumps out of the way. Mr. Fantastic. I mean, it always makes me laugh, Mr. Fantastic. I can't take it seriously. I always think of like Stretch Armstrong when I see stuff like this. But yeah, Mr. Fantastic, he stretches out to block his path, and Ben's like, let me at him. And Spidey, I like how he looks here, actually. The proportions and everything just look, that's a good picture of Spider-Man. But I came to join up, and I think I should get your top salary. He's a very cocky youth, isn't he? He's not been humbled quite yet, has the old Spidey? And what do you know? Spider-Man and his bad luck continues. They're a non-profit organisation. They make just enough money to cover their expenses, and the rest of it goes back into crime fighting. And they say, hey, aren't you a criminal anyway? This isn't Outlaws Anonymous. And Spider-Man's had enough. You know what? This was a waste of time. And they say, hey, wait, come back. I think they're trying to be friendly enough. I mean, they're willing to give him the time of day, I think, but there's no money in it for him, so he's out of it. So as I suspected, the Fantastic Four just wanted to help him. Well, Sue anyway. I don't think the others really care too much. But Mr. Fantastic says, I think we'll be hearing more from that young man in the future. Don't you know it? I mean, in a big way. But we cut to the Chameleon now, and he takes on the identity of this janitor so he can steal some plans. And back at the hideout, he comments about how the Iron Curtain countries will pay a fortune for these plans. So that might not mean much today, but back then, the Iron Curtain, I think we're talking about Russia, aren't we, or the Soviet Union in any case. And I think that firmly puts them in bad guy territory because you've got the Cold War this time, haven't you? So to the American audience, who this comic is aimed at, that's a bad guy move, right? To be selling plans to the other side like that. And he takes great interest in Spider-Man's visit to the Fantastic Four, which is on the news. And he thinks to himself, this is great. So Spider-Man can take the fall for what I'm going to do next. So these top three panels up here, the Chameleon somehow communicates with Peter Palmer, Spider-Man, in a way that only he can sense. And I think Spider-Man realizes instantly it's a message only he can receive. What the science is there, I don't know. Is there a frequency only spider people can sense? It's just one of those things you have to let go, because in comic book world, I guess they had very limited space to create a scenario where Spider-Man and Chameleon could meet in secret. And it's one of those things you just have to let go. But he decides he can't pass up this opportunity, and he goes to meet him on the top of this building. Now you've got this great series of events here. So Chameleon takes on this guy's role as a lift operator, gets up the lift, and becomes Spider-Man, and uses his web gun to sort of web this guy up. And he notices it's not as strong as Spider-Man's, but it will do. And this guy will now be convinced that Spider-Man's come to rob these plants. So Chameleon nearly pulls it off. So he races to the roof, gets this helicopter that I guess has just been waiting there for him. And as he takes off, the real Spider-Man turns up just in time to get arrested for the crime that Chameleon's just pulled off. But they've got no chance of arresting him. I think that's where Chameleon's plan falls apart. I mean, did he not realise that Spider-Man could easily thwart them? And if it was just to get him the blame, there was no need to have called him, really, was there? He could have just done the heist, dressed as Spider-Man, got away, and that would have been it. He'd have got away with that clean, scot-free. But the mistake has been to get the real Spider-Man on the scene to get arrested. That hasn't happened, and he's clicked that it's the pilot that he needs to track down and find out what's going on. And he uses his spider sensors to tune in to the ship and get its location. I don't know that that's a thing Spider-Man can do in the future. Is that just one of these things like with the X-Men where they're still trying to figure out what he can and can't do? Be happy to discuss that in the comments if anyone's got any thoughts of any other instances where he's used such a thing, but I'm not aware that that is a power per se that I'm familiar with Spider-Man having. I love it when Spider-Man does this, and this is the first time he's done it. So he webs onto 2 points, pulls himself back like a sling, and then slingshots himself across the city, which is great. He makes a parachute out of web. I think they've missed a trick. I suppose this is, obviously, I've got the benefit of hindsight and him having done it decades later, but the webbing in between, in his armpits, he could have used those as like wings and just glided across. That would have looked a lot cooler, but I guess they haven't thought of that yet. But he gets on a boat randomly. It's just Spider-Man in vehicles always makes me laugh. It just looks so wrong. He gets to the submarine, and there's that sort of Soviet Union symbol there. They've been seen. They've decided to submerge, get away, and they're leaving Chameleon to figure this out for himself, as they would. Why wouldn't you? And he realizes it's been made, and Spider-Man gets up into the helicopter and rips off the door with his bare hands. This is a great page. I really like this. He, I guess, makes Chameleon fly back to the building, and he's got the plans in his hands, and he's going to turn him in. But Chameleon throws his pellet down and creates this chaos, and amongst all of that, he makes his escape. But they've mentioned this is good from the outside. It shows you that it's locked down, and he can't get out. And I like how they do that from the outside. That makes sense. So it's like it's isolated now. All the rest of the action is going to take place in this building. And instead of just being captured, which would have been the end of the issue, he now is going to try and make his escape using his chameleon powers. Well, not powers as such, are they? But his skills, I should say. And that makes for a great cat and mouse. I always love a good cat and mouse. So he's hiding as a police officer and is right under Spider-Man's nose. But he doesn't know about his spider sense, does he? So Spider-Man senses that he's close. And the chameleon takes the opportunity to douse the lights. And it's now darkness. How's he going to find him now? And this is brilliant from Chameleon, isn't it? So Spider-Man's got the best of him. He gets in the way. And it's a turn of genius. He turns around and says, oh, it's the Chameleon who's dressed as Spider-Man again. It's absolutely fantastic. And they all fall for it, of course. But Spider-Man jumps out of the way, grabs onto the wall, and they realise, oh, actually, that is Spider-Man. And lucky for Spidey and everyone else, Chameleon's costume has been torn, and you see the Spider-Man thing underneath, and he's been caught, hasn't he? And that's the end of Chameleon for this issue. But Spider-Man runs away. You can see he looks like he might even be crying there. He says sob. He wishes he'd never gotten these superpowers, and he's had enough already. And gosh, this is the great sort of dilemma, what it means to be Spider-Man. It's all right here in the first issue, you know, that misery that it brings to him in his personal life. It's all laid out here as issue 1, isn't it? And I think that's really great. And it brings it back full circle with the Fantastic Four with a little bit of a, I don't want to say payoff, but the whole sort of selling point of the issue was the Fantastic Four, so it's only right to have them on the last page. But here they are, they're sort of contemplating what the future might mean for Spider-Man. Will he be good? Will he be bad? And you've got this great bit here with Reed Richards, who's sort of stroking his chin in thought, I wonder what his future will hold. And that's something that we'll have to wonder about too. You've got this great big question mark behind Spider-Man. Will he be good? Will he be bad? And that's really good, actually. I really like that he's not just, this is a hero. He does heroic things. He saves the day and gets the girl or whatever. This is a kid who's got real problems. And I think they always call him the most relatable superhero. And I really feel that, you know, as I'm reading this issue, they absolutely nail that dilemma, don't they? Those sort of issues that he's having in real world with his money and responsibilities. And now he's got the law after him and he's not done anything wrong per se. And it's good, isn't it? I'm invested. I mean, I'm 60 years on. I'm full of Spider-Man stories of the future, but these initial stories are grabbing me really quickly. And I think they really hit a home run, haven't they, with this Spider-Man character? I think he's going to turn into quite a popular chap. What do you think? Let's take a quick sneak peek at issue number 2. And we've got the Vulture, haven't we? What a classic Spider-Man villain. So he's making a very early debut here. And like I said, with the X-Men comics, you've got the Chameleon in issue 1, and now you've got the Vulture. And these are going to be mainstays, aren't they, throughout the run, throughout all 60 plus years that we've had of Spider-Man so far. And it's great how they hit the ground running with these. And this looks like an epic battle, doesn't it? So he's fighting him in the sky. Spider-Man looks like he's on the receiving end of a beatdown. And it's going to be another 2 stories. So you've got 2 thrillers, 2 great new supervillains. So who else have we got besides the Vulture? We've got the terrible Tinkerer. I don't think that guy's going to survive the test of time, is he? That's not a name I've heard before. And I'm more intrigued to see who the terrible Tinkerer is. So that's just made me giggle a little bit. I'm sorry. But in any case, do like and subscribe if you want to see more content involving Spider-Man. So we're going to cover this in the next Spider-Man issue. So do stay with us and subscribe if you want to see more of this and what you thought of Amazing Spider-Man #1. So thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, and I'll see you on the next video. Thank you.